Welcome to the lecture on international trade. In this lecture, we will discuss various theories of international trade, government intervention in international trade, types of tariff and non-tariff barriers, and India's foreign trade policy. So, what is international trade? It is an exchange of goods and services and resources between countries. It also involves transaction in multiple currencies. What are the complexity involved in international trade? Complexity means difficulties. First point, heterogeneity of customers and currencies. Heterogeneity means difference in currencies and customers, as there are multiple countries involved. So each countries have different currencies. So there are different currencies involved in international trade. Even each and every countries have its own cultures and customs. So there will be difference in customers. Next, difference in legal system. Each country has its own legal system. It may be possible that a product may be allowed in one country and may not be allowed in another country. Next, documentations. Different countries have different documentation required. Restrictions in mobility of goods and services. Restriction in form of taxes, duties, tariff barriers, non-tariff barriers, quota, etc. What are the arguments in favor of international trade? Arguments in support of international trade means advantages of international trade. First point, international trade prevents from undue fall in domestic prices due to overproduction. Overproduction in case of domestic business creates increase in supply. When supply is more and demand is constant, so price will reduce. And if business operates in international market, then the extra production will be exported to another country. So more exports will create more profit and more income. It will also create more employment generation and there will be increase in GDP. Ultimately, it will achieve the aim of economic growth. Next, due to increase in competition, the country can get cheaper raw material from open market. Next, economic efficiency. It means when production increases, it will reduce the overall cost per unit. Increase in standard of living. When production increases, employment generation increases and overall income increases. So there will be increase in standard of living. Next, specialization. It helps in improved productivity. Improved productivity means increasing the number of production within a stipulated period of time. So there will be specialization. Reduces domestic monopoly. Monopoly creates inflation in the market, and due to international trade, competition increases, and competition helps to reduce the price of goods and services. Last, strengthens bond between countries. Supply of goods and services during the time of natural calamities helps to improve bonding between countries. For example, India has provided services to different countries at the time of natural calamities. Some economists were against the international trade due to several reasons. First point, international trade creates severe competition in the domestic market due to which small companies may not survive. For example, BPL in India. Next, exhaustion of natural resources. Natural resources are limited, but to earn profit, people have started exhausting the natural resources. Threat to domestic industries. As we have discussed, competition destructs the domestic industries. For example, when Amazon started dealing in India, the small retail traders went out of the market. Next, welfare of people may be ignored. As we know, international trade requires more production and it requires machineries to produce more in limited time. Hence, the unskilled workers may lose their jobs, so there will be lesser employment. Next, loss of cultural identity. To some extent, India has started adopting Western cultures in sense of dressing or consuming foods, etc. Next, dumping poor quality products, for example, Chinese mobile. Next, reduced demand of unskilled laborers or semi-skilled laborers due to replacement of machinery. Employees are losing their jobs. Let's discuss various theories on international trade. First, mercantilism. It was created during 16th century. Then the absolute advantage theory provided by Adam Smith during 1776. Then the comparative cost advantage theory provided by David Ricardo in the year 1817. Next, factor endowment theory of Heckscher and Olin 1919 in the 1930s, and the new trade theory during 1980s by Paul Krugman. So let's discuss each theories in detail. Mercantile theory. This theory was based on Europe's great power. It is the oldest theory. According to this theory, a country can become a wealthy country if it accumulates the gold, if it increases its export and reduces the imports. The theory measures the wealth of nation by the size of its accumulated wealth in terms of specie. Specie means precious metals. By encouraging exports, by encouraging exports through government subsidies. When the government provides subsidy to businessmen, they will be encouraged to export more goods and services, and discouraging imports by improving high tariff barriers. These are some restrictions. When government impose restriction, the businessmen will be discouraged to import the goods and services. This theory says that an international trade is a zero-sum game. It means one country's profit will be set off against another country's loss. If one country earns profit, another country suffers loss. But Adam Smith argued that international trade is not a zero-sum game. Both the countries can be in benefit. The absolute advantage theory explained in book The Wealth of Nation by Adam Smith in the year 1776. It explains that both the countries can be in benefit. The exchange of goods and services between two countries will take place only if each of two countries can produce one commodity at absolutely lower cost of production than other country. This theory says that both the countries can be in benefit if it produces and exports the goods in which it is efficient. It involves two countries and two commodities. That is why it is called 2 by 2 model. Two countries involved, countries A, country B, two commodities involved, commodity A, commodity B. For example, two countries are given and two commodities are given. If country A produces 6 bushels of wheat in 1 hour and 4 bales of cotton in hour, similarly, country B produces 1 bushels of wheat in 1 hour and 5 bales of cotton in 1 hour, then country A is in absolute advantage in producing wheat and country B is in absolute advantage in producing cotton because A produces more wheat in less time while B produces more cotton in less time as compared to other country. So according to absolute advantage theory, country A should produce wheat and export to country B, and country B should produce cotton and export to country A. Here, one country is in absolute advantage in producing only one commodity. But what if one country is in absolute advantage in producing both the commodities? So, solution is given by David Ricardo in his theory, the comparative cost advantage theory. The comparative cost advantage theory given by David Ricardo in the year 1817 in his book on the principles and political economy and taxation. It explains that even if one country is specialized in producing both the commodities, the international trade is possible. For example, two countries are given, country A and country B. Two commodities are given, wheat and cotton. Country A produces 6 bushels of wheat in 1 hour and 4 bales of cotton in 1 hour, while country B produces only 1 bushels of wheat in 1 hour and 2 bales of cotton in 1 hour. In this case, country A is in absolute advantage in producing both the commodities. It produces more commodities, more quantity in lesser time. So country A is in absolute advantage in producing both the commodities. But still, David Ricardo says international trade between A and B is possible. So, according to this theory, country B will produce and export that commodity in which it has least absolute disadvantage. Absolute disadvantage means difference between commodity produced by country A and country B, that is 6 minus 1, 5. B has absolute disadvantage of 5 bushels per hour of wheat, and absolute disadvantage for cotton will be 4 minus 2 equals to 2. So absolute disadvantage is greater in case of wheat and absolute disadvantage to country B is lower in producing cotton. So country B has lowest absolute disadvantage in cotton, so it will export cotton and import wheat. Country B will export cotton and country A will export wheat. So, as per comparative cost advantage theory, international trade is beneficial for both the countries, even if one country has absolute advantage in both the commodities. But still, critics argued that even this theory has limitations because this theory have not considered other factors of production such as land, labor, capital, entrepreneur, etc. This theory is based on only one factor of production, and that is labor. And this theory does not talk about other factors of production. So, the solution given by factor endowment theory. The factor endowment theory was given by Eliashar and Bertel-Ohlin in the year 1919, and it was further extended by Ohlin in the year 1933. It is also called as modern theory of trade or Heckscher-Ohlin theory of trade. Previously, all other theories such as mercantilism, absolute advantage theory, comparative cost advantage theory, all the theories covered only two countries and two commodities, but only one factor of production, that is labor. But they have not considered other factors of production. So, this theory has covered two factors of production such as labor and capital. According to this theory, a nation will produce and export the commodity whose production requires intensive use of nation abundant resource. Abundant resource means those resources which are available in the fullest capacity and cheap factor of production. India is a labor abundant country. China is a labor abundant country. United States is capital abundant country and import the scarce and expensive factor of production. In simple words, a country should produce only those goods which it can produce more efficiently and import the other goods. So, what is factor endowment? International trade depends on all factors of production, such as land, labor, capital, entrepreneur, etc. The country with large factor endowment are financially better than the country with less factor endowment. For example, there are two commodities, clothes and cars. Clothes can be produced by using labor intensive method and car can be produced by using capital intensive method. Clothing requires more labor and less capital, whereas car requires more capital and less labor work. So, more labors required in clothing and less capital in manufacturing car, more capital is required and less labor. So, there are two commodities available. Similarly, now there are two countries available, USA and India. USA is capital rich country. India is labor abundant country. So in USA there is less availability of labor and more capital. Here capital means technology. And in India, due to population, more labor are available at cheaper rate and less capital is available. Since in India capital is scarce, it will be more expensive. So USA will produce and export capital intensive goods and not labor intensive goods. But labor intensive goods will be imported from India. On the contrary, India will not produce capital intensive goods. It will produce and export only labor intensive goods and not capital intensive goods. But it will import capital intensive from USA. So according to this theory, the country which are abundant in resource will produce and export to another country and import in which it is scarce. So there are two theorems. Heckscher-Ohlin theorem, which says that capital abundant country will produce and export capital intensive goods and import labor intensive goods. Similarly, labor abundant country will produce and export labor intensive goods and import capital intensive goods. Next, factor price equilibrium theorem. It says that in USA there is lesser number of laborer are available, so wages will be higher in the country. Similarly, in India less technology is available, so it will be more expensive. Say for example, in USA, if it produces clothes, to produce one quantity of cloth, it requires two labor and one capital. If it produces car, it requires one labor and two capital. So it has three labor and three capital. Total three labors are available and three capital is available. But as per this theory, USA should produce and export capital intensive goods, that is car, and not to produce clothes. So if it produces two quantity of car, it requires two labor and four capital. Previously, before, there were requirement of three labor and three capital, but after it requires two labor and four capital, then there is one labor extra and one capital in shortage. So there is one labor extra available with USA. It means labor supply is more. So when supply increases, the wage rate of labor will decrease. There is shortage of one capital. So as we know, USA is capital abundant country, but there is a shortage of capital. So shortage of capital will create demand. As demand for capital increases, the price will also increase. Let's take another example. In case of India, to produce one quantity of cloth, it requires two labor and one capital. And to produce one quantity of car, it requires one labor and two capital. But as we know, India is a labor abundant country, so it should produce cloth, that is labor intensive good, and not to produce car. So if India produces cloth, it requires 2 plus 2, 4 labor, and 1 plus 1, 2 capital. India has 3 labor plus 3 capital, but now there is a shortage of one labor and one capital is extra. So shortage will create demand, so labor wage will increase. So one extra capital is available. It means there is increase in supply of capital. So increase in supply will reduce the price of capital. So in USA, due to increase in supply of labor, the wage rate reduces, and in India, due to shortage of labor, the wage rate will increase. So it will be in equilibrium. Similarly, in USA, due to shortage of capital, it will be expensive, and in case of India, due to excessive capital, it will be cheap. So both of them will be in equilibrium. It is called as the factor price equilibrium theorem. So to summarize, factor endowment theory says that a capital abundant country should produce and export capital intensive goods, and a labor abundant country should produce and sell labor intensive goods. So till now we have discussed mercantilism, the absolute advantage theory by Adam Smith, comparative cost advantage theory by David Ricardo, factor endowment theory by Heckscher Olin. So let's discuss the last theory, the new trade theory given by Paul Krugman. So according to new trade theory given by Paul in the year 1970 in his book Intra-Industry Specialization and the Gain from Trade, it says that even India is a labor abundant country, it produces and exports the labor intensive goods, but still it can import the goods from another country. For example, India produces and exports the car, but still India imports the luxury cars. Next example, mobile phones. India produces mobile phone, exports it, and even it imports the mobile from another country. So there are two benefits. Economies of scale, it can be achieved by increasing production because it increases the supply and ultimately profit, and it will reduce cost of production per unit. Next benefit is network effect. It means value of goods increases when users increases. It is also called as bandwagon effect. For example, WhatsApp. It is network effect. The users increases and the value of WhatsApp and companies will also increase. And what is first mover advantage? Firms that establishes a first mover advantage in the production of new product may later dominate the global trade in that product.